You want to know how I stopped my son's wedding in less than 72 hours? It started with a phone call that didn't end, a conversation I was never meant to hear, and 3 decisions I made before the sun set on Sapelo Sound. I'm Gloria Scott. I'm 58 years old. I'm a nurse manager, a real estate investor, and a mother who thought she'd raised a man with a backbone. I was wrong about that last part, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that Tuesday afternoon in my kitchen, 3 weeks before what should have been the happiest day of my son's life. The shrimp were turning golden in my cast iron skillet when my phone lit up with Nathan's name. I wiped my hands on my apron, the one with the faded magnolias that my late husband Raymond gave me 20 years ago, and answered on the second ring. "Hey, baby," I said, adjusting the heat under the pan. "I'm testing out this low-country boil for the rehearsal dinner. You remember how your daddy used to—" A clatter, background noise. Then Nathan's voice, distant and distracted. "Hold on, Mom. Just hold on." I waited, listening to muffled sounds, footsteps, a door closing. I was about to hang up when I heard her voice. Vivian Ashford, my son's future mother-in-law. Her voice had that particular quality Southern women of a certain class perfect over decades. Sweet as honey, sharp as a straight razor. "Darling, we need to discuss the seating chart," Vivian said. I could hear papers rustling. "Your mother doesn't need to be in the front row. People like her, well, let's say she'd be more comfortable toward the back, less conspicuous." My hand froze on the skillet handle. The butter started to smoke. Nathan's voice came through, and I heard something in it I'd never heard before. Weakness, the kind that makes a man shrink himself to fit someone else's idea of acceptable. "She's paying for half of this, Mom Vivian." Mom Vivian. When had my son started calling this woman Mom? "Darling," Vivian's laugh was like wind chimes made of ice. "Money doesn't buy class. It rents it. We'll handle Gloria gently. Just keep her occupied with kitchen things. She's good at that. The caterer can use her help, I'm sure." Kitchen things. I'd spent 30 years as a nurse. Worked my way from bedpans to boardrooms. Put myself through nursing school while raising Nathan alone after his father walked out. Built a wound care startup that got acquired for enough money to buy 3 properties on this Georgia coast. And to this woman, I was good at kitchen things. "I'll talk to her," Nathan said. The pause before he said it lasted forever. Long enough for me to hear everything he wasn't saying. Long enough to understand that my son, who I'd raised to stand up for what was right, was choosing comfort over courage. I didn't slam the phone down. I didn't gasp or cry or do any of the things you might expect. I pressed mute, set the phone gently on my butcher block counter, and watched the butter burn black in the skillet. Then I turned off the stove, walked to my office, and opened the leather notebook I've kept for 40 years. Every major decision of my life has been written in this book first. Divorce, nursing boards, property purchases, Raymond's funeral arrangements. I opened to a clean page and wrote, in the careful cursive my grandmother taught me, "The wedding never happened. Not won't happen. Not might not happen, never happened. Because once I write something down in that book, it becomes the truth I'm going to create." You see, some women were raised to make peace, to swallow insults with a smile, to make themselves smaller so other people could feel bigger. I was raised that way too. My first husband, Nathan's father, spent 10 years teaching me that my dreams were impractical, my ambitions unfeminine, my body too much. He didn't hit me. He didn't have to. He just diminished me. One comment at a time, one disappointed sigh at a time, until I almost forgot I was someone before I was his wife. Almost. I left him with nothing but a baby on my hip and a promise to myself. I would never shrink again. So when I heard my son, my own son, agree to shrink me, something inside me went very, very quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm changes direction. I closed the notebook and made my first call. "Nia Lawson, Coastal Events." The voice was professional, crisp. "Nia, it's Gloria Scott." "Mrs. Scott, I was just reviewing the final timeline for—" "I'm invoking the sponsor consent clause," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm, almost gentle. All vendor deliverables are to be suspended pending my written approval. The silence on the other end stretched long enough for me to hear my own heartbeat. Mrs. Scott, Naya said carefully, that would halt everything. The florist has already started on the arrangements. The caterer has ordered specialty ingredients. If we stop now, these vendors, they'll lose significant deposits. Some of them are small businesses who've invested. I understand, I cut her off. Not rudely, firmly. Invoice me personally for any documented losses they incur, but nothing moves forward without my signature. Is that clear? Another pause. I could picture Nia at her desk, probably rubbing her temples the way she did when dealing with difficult situations. Mrs. Scott, I need to be straight with you. This is going to create serious problems, not just logistically, but legally. The Ashfords could. Let them try. I opened my laptop, pulled up the contract I'd signed 6 months ago, the one I'd read 3 times before putting down my deposit. Section 4, paragraph 7. The primary sponsor retains final approval rights over all vendor deliverables. That's me, Nia, not the Ashfords. Me. I heard her typing, probably pulling up the same contract. I need 48 hours notice minimum, she said finally. That's standard industry practice, and it's in our contract too. Fine. Consider this your notice. Nothing happens for 48 hours. After that, nothing happens without my written consent. Mrs. Scott, Nia's voice softened. Can I ask, is everything okay? I looked out my window at the live oaks draped in Spanish moss, at the salt marsh beyond, at the house I'd rebuilt twice, once from rot, once from grief. Everything's fine, I said. I'm just protecting my investment. After I hung up, I sat very still for a moment. Then I dialed my attorney. Raymond Hayes had been my lawyer for 15 years. He was the one who handled my second husband's estate, who structured my business deals, who made sure I never signed anything that would cost me my freedom. Gloria, he answered on the first ring. He never called me Mrs. Scott. What's wrong? Why do you assume something's wrong? Because you only call me on weekdays unless something's on fire. And it's Tuesday at 4 p.m. Despite everything, I almost smiled. I need you to review my living trust documents, specifically the beneficiary designations. What kind of review? The kind where my son is no longer the primary beneficiary. The silence was different this time, heavier. Gloria, Raymond said slowly, I need to tell you something as your attorney and your friend. If you do this, Nathan could contest it, especially if he can argue undue influence or diminished capacity. And given that you're doing this right before his wedding, I have recordings, I said quietly, of his fiancée's mother discussing how to phase me out of my future grandchildren's lives, of Nathan agreeing to keep me occupied with kitchen things. Jesus, Gloria. I don't need Jesus right now, Raymond. I need legal protection. I heard him sigh. Send me the recordings. I'll review them and get back to you. But Gloria, this is going to get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. I'm just making sure I don't get buried in it. My third call was the hardest. The insurance company representative was young, polite, and completely unprepared for what I was about to ask. I need to change the primary beneficiary on my life insurance policy, I told her. From my son Nathan Scott to my sister Adelaide Scott. The cheerful customer service voice faltered. May I ask the reason for the change? I looked at the photo on my desk. Nathan at 7, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a fish he'd caught off my dock. Back when I was his hero. Back when he thought I hung the moon. Because love shouldn't cost your dignity, I said. I'm sorry, I didn't. Just make the change, please. The verification questions took 10 minutes. Mother's maiden name, first pet, high school mascot. Each answer felt like sealing a door I'd once left open. The change will take 7 to 10 business days to process, the representative said. You'll receive confirmation via email. 7 to 10 days. The wedding was in 3 weeks. Good. I hung up and sat in my office as the afternoon light turned golden through the windows. The shrimp were still in the skillet, cold now, ruined. I didn't care. I opened my phone and listened to the recording again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it, that I hadn't misheard. But no, there it was, clear as day, people like her, kitchen things, less conspicuous. I saved the recording in 3 different places: my phone, my computer, a thumb drive, and my safe. Evidence isn't about revenge. It's about making sure that when people question your decisions, you can show them exactly why you made them. My phone buzzed. Nathan. Mom, can I come by tonight? Need to talk. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Me. Come for dinner. 7 p.m. I didn't add I love you at the end like I usually did. Some things need to be earned back. Nathan pulled up in his Lexus at 6:47 p.m. 13 minutes early. He'd always been punctual. I'd raised him that way. Show up when you say you will. Keep your word. Be a man people can count on. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd made fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese. His favorite since he was 5 years old. Not because I was trying to soften the blow, but because some conversations need to happen over food that reminds you who you are. He came in through the back door like he always did. Kissed my cheek like he always did. Smells amazing, Ma. Sit down, I said. He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped him with homework, where we'd played cards on rainy Sundays, where I'd told him his daddy wasn't coming back. I put a plate in front of him. Then I put my phone on the table between us. Before you eat, I said, I need you to listen to something. Mom, if this is about the seating chart, listen. I pressed play. I watched his face as he heard it. Watched the color drain from his brown skin. Watched his jaw tighten. Watched his hands grip the edge of the table. When Vivian's voice said, she's good at kitchen things, Nathan closed his eyes. When the recording got to the part he hadn't heard, the part about phasing me out of his children's lives, his eyes flew open. Once they're married, we'll phase her out. Grandchildren don't need to see that kind of influence. What do you mean? Darling, look at her. Do you want your children thinking it's acceptable to let yourself go like that? We'll limit visits. Holidays only. Maybe. The pause that followed was the longest 3 seconds of my life. Then Nathan's voice, quiet and complicit. Let's focus on the wedding first. I stopped the recording. Nathan sat frozen, staring at the phone like it was a snake that might strike. I didn't, he started. His voice cracked. I was going to talk to her later. I was going to set boundaries after we got through the wedding. I didn't want to start a fight right before. After? I said softly. Nathan, baby, there is no after. There's only what you accept in the moment. Mom, please. You don't understand the pressure, don't I? I set down my fork. Let me tell you what I understand. I understand that your father used to tell me I was too much, too loud, too ambitious, too big. I understand that I spent 10 years making myself smaller to fit inside his idea of a proper wife. And I understand that the day I decided I was done shrinking was the day I became the mother who could raise you. This is different. How? My voice wasn't angry. That surprised both of us. It was just sad. How is it different, Nathan? Because she's rich? Because she has the right last name? Because she knows which fork to use? She's going to be my mother-in-law. I have to keep the peace. At what cost? I asked. Your mother's dignity? Your children's relationship with their grandmother? Your own integrity? He dropped his head into his hands. What do you want me to do? I want you to be the man I raised you to be. And if I can't? His voice was muffled through his fingers. What if I can't choose between you and her? What if trying to make everyone happy is the only way to... Then you'll spend your life making everyone happy, except the people who actually love you, I said. Starting with yourself. I stood up, cleared my plate, even though I hadn't eaten. The wedding's been put on hold, I said. I invoked the sponsor clause. No vendors will deliver without my written consent. Nathan's head snapped up. You what? I'm protecting myself, Nathan, because clearly you won't. Mom, you can't. This is my wedding. And I'm the sponsor. Read your contract. He stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor. This is insane. You're going to sabotage my wedding because of one conversation? Because Vivian said some things. Some things, I repeated. Nathan, she called me fat. She said I wasn't classy enough for the front row. She planned to erase me from my own grandchildren's lives. And you let her. I didn't let her. I was going to handle it. When? My voice finally rose. Not a shout, but louder, harder. When, Nathan? After the wedding? After the first baby? After you're so deep in that family that standing up for me means losing everything you've built with them? He stared at me, chest heaving. In the fading light through the kitchen window, he looked 12 again. Lost. Scared. Wanting his mama to fix everything. But I couldn't fix this. You need to leave, I said quietly. Mom, go home, Nathan. Think about what kind of man you want to be. Then come back and tell me. He stood there for another long moment, looking at the untouched plate of food, at the phone on the table, at me. Then he walked out. I listened to his Lexus start up, listened to the gravel crunch under his tires as he drove away. I stood at the window and watched his taillights disappear into the dusk. Then I sat down at the table and ate dinner alone. The chicken was cold by then. I ate it anyway. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was anxious. I'd made peace with my decisions the moment I wrote them in my notebook. But because at 2:47 a.m., lying in the bed I'd shared with Raymond before cancer took him, I realized something that made my chest ache. I'd taught Nathan how to survive. I'd forgotten to teach him how to stand. By sunrise, I was on my third cup of coffee when my phone rang. Adelaide, my older sister, the only person who could call me at 6 a.m. without apology. You started a war, she said instead of hello. Good morning to you, too. Nathan called me at midnight, crying, said you canceled his wedding. I took a long sip of coffee. I halted vendor deliverables. That's not the same thing. Gloria Marie Scott, don't play semantic games with me. Adelaide's voice had that edge that meant she was in her car, probably driving to her shift at the hospital. We'd both become nurses, both clawed our way up. The difference was Adelaide never had to leave a marriage to do it. What happened? I told her about the recording, about Vivian's voice, dripping honey and venom, about Nathan's silence. The line went quiet for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Well, hell, Adelaide finally said. What are you going to do? I already did it. That's not what I'm asking. What's your next move? I looked out at the salt marsh, morning mist rising like ghosts. I need to know who I'm dealing with. You thinking what I think you're thinking? Tobias Grant still doing investigative work? Adelaide laughed, short and sharp. Girl, you're going to hire a private investigator on your future daughter-in-law's family? That's some Olivia Pope level. I'm protecting myself. I cut her off. If Vivian Ashford wants a war, she's going to find out I do my research. Tobias Grant had been FBI before he retired to private practice. He was expensive, discreet, and thorough, exactly what I needed. I'll need 3 weeks, he said when I met him at a coffee shop in Savannah. He was 60, gray-haired, unremarkable in every way that made him perfect for his job. Maybe 4. Financials take time. You have 2, I said, sliding an envelope across the table. That's half now, half on delivery. He opened it, counted without being obvious. What exactly am I looking for? Everything. Business dealings, debts, legal troubles. I want to know why Vivian Ashford is so desperate to control her daughter's marriage that she'd rather erase the groom's mother than risk losing social standing. Tobias nodded slowly. You know what you're asking for might not be pretty. Good, I said. Pretty is what got us here in the first place. The waiting was the hardest part. 48 hours came and went. Nia sent emails confirming vendor suspension. The florist called me directly, crying, saying she'd already ordered 200 white hydrangeas. I paid her invoice in full with a note. For your trouble. No hard feelings. Raymond Hayes sent the draft rescission notices. I read every word 3 times before signing. And Nathan? Radio silence. I told myself I was fine with it, that he needed space to think, to grow up, to figure out who he wanted to be. But late at night, I checked my phone more than I wanted to admit. On day 16, Tobias called. "I've got something. You free this afternoon?" We met at my house. He spread documents across my dining room table like a dealer laying out cards. "Vivian Ashford née Beaumont," he began. "Married Charles Ashford in 1985. Old money, society family. Had one daughter, Sloane, in 1996. Charles died in 2010 under complicated circumstances." "What kind of complicated?" Tobias pulled out a newspaper clipping. "Financial fraud. He'd been running a Ponzi scheme through his investment firm. Lost everything. His clients' money, his own family fortune, his reputation. He had a heart attack 2 days before the trial. Vivian was left with nothing but debt and a 14-year-old daughter." I stared at the grainy photo of Charles Ashford. Distinguished, silver-haired. The kind of man who looked like he belonged on money. "How did she recover?" I asked. "She didn't. Not financially, but she's a master at appearances." He pulled out more documents. "She took a job as a consultant for the Southern Heritage Foundation, basically a professional society hostess. Leveraged her name, her connections, her ability to make rich people feel cultured. She's been living on the edge of bankruptcy for 15 years, keeping up appearances with maxed-out credit cards and strategic networking." "So Sloane's marriage is her retirement plan," Tobias finished. "Nathan's not wealthy by her standards, but he's stable. Respectable career. And you," he looked at me, "you're the golden goose. The beach house, the properties, the startup equity. Vivian sees you as the bankroll, not the grandmother." My stomach turned, not with anger, with something worse, understanding. "There's more," Tobias said quietly. He pulled out printed emails. "I found correspondence between Vivian and a society columnist at the Savannah Register. She's been planting stories. Nothing defamatory, just strategic. I read them, each one a paper cut. Nathan Scott's mother is quite the self-made woman, very ambitious. Gloria Scott has been wonderfully generous with the wedding. She's not quite our usual circle, but her heart's in the right place. We're so grateful for Gloria's contributions. She understands her role." I set the emails down carefully, like they might explode. "She's been managing my reputation before I even knew there was a problem," I said. "That's what people like Vivian do," Tobias said. "They control the narrative before you realize there's a story being told." After he left, I sat alone with the documents spread around me. I thought about Vivian, young, widowed, watching her world collapse. Choosing to rebuild it on appearances instead of authenticity. Choosing control instead of courage. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. My phone rang that evening. Unknown number. "Mrs. Scott? This is Reverend Carter." I sat up straighter. Miles Carter was supposed to officiate the wedding, a respected pastor, 60-ish, known for thoughtful sermons and genuine kindness. "Reverend," I said carefully, "what can I do for you?" "I need to speak with you, in person, if possible. It's about the wedding." We met the next morning at a small diner off Highway 17. He ordered coffee, black. I ordered tea I didn't drink. "Mrs. Scott," he began, hands wrapped around his mug. "I've married over 200 couples in my ministry. I've seen good marriages and bad ones. I've seen people marry for love, for money, for loneliness. But I've never—" He paused, choosing words carefully. "I've never seen someone as calculated as Vivian Ashford." I waited. She came to see me 3 weeks ago, asked me to adjust my sermon. She wanted me to emphasize wifely submission, honoring the husband's family, the importance of maintaining proper appearances in marriage. He looked up at me, eyes troubled. When I declined, she threatened to withdraw a significant donation her foundation had pledged to our youth ministry. My tea was getting cold. I didn't touch it. "What did you do?" I told her my sermons aren't for sale. He smiled sadly. We lost the donation, but I kept my integrity. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you should know what kind of woman is about to become your son's family. And because, he hesitated, because in good conscience I can't marry them. Not when I know one side of the family is actively trying to erase the other. I felt something crack open in my chest. Not hope exactly, but recognition that there were still people who chose what was right over what was easy. Thank you, I said quietly, for telling me, for choosing truth. He nodded. I've already informed Nathan and Sloan. I won't be officiating. After he left, I sat in that diner for another hour, watching the highway traffic, thinking about choices and consequences and the price of standing firm. My phone buzzed. Nathan, we need to talk. All of us. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., your place? Me. Who's all of us? Nathan. Me, Sloan, you. Please, Mom. I stared at that please for a long time. Me. Fine. Just you three. No Vivian. Nathan. Agreed. But Vivian didn't wait for permission. She called me that same afternoon, her voice smooth as silk over steel. Gloria, darling, I think we need to clear the air, woman to woman. Would you meet me for dinner, somewhere neutral? I should have said no, should have kept my distance, played it safe, but I've never been good at safe. The Pearl, I said. It was Savannah's finest restaurant, neutral ground, public, expensive enough that neither of us could cause a scene. Tomorrow, 7. Perfect, Vivian purred. I'll make a reservation. She was already seated when I arrived, wearing pearls and a navy dress that probably cost more than my car payment. She stood to greet me, air kissing both my cheeks like we were old friends. Gloria, she said warmly, you look lovely. I'd worn my best, a burgundy wrap dress, my grandmother's garnet earrings, my dignity like armor. Vivian, we sat, ordered wine we wouldn't drink. The waiter brought bread neither of us touched. I think, Vivian began, folding her hands on the white tablecloth, we've gotten off on the wrong foot. I'd like to start over. By all means. I know you heard things, she said delicately. Things taken out of context. Nathan shouldn't have left that line open. Technology, you know how it is. She smiled. What you heard was me being protective of Sloan. Perhaps too protective. But surely you understand a mother's instinct. I understand protecting your child, I said evenly. I don't understand erasing someone else's mother to do it. Her smile tightened. That's not what... Let's not, I cut her off gently. Let's not pretend. You and I both know exactly what was said and what it meant. She leaned back, recalculating. Fine. You want honesty? Here it is. I've worked very hard to rebuild my daughter's future after my husband destroyed our family. Sloan deserves stability, respectability, a good life. Your son is part of that. You, she gestured at me, complicate things. How? You're wonderful, truly, but you're different. Different background, different social circle. My world has rules, Gloria. Unspoken ones, but rules nonetheless. I was trying to help you navigate them. By putting me in the back row? By saving you from being out of place. Her voice rose slightly before she caught herself. Do you have any idea what those people would say about you? How they'd pick you apart? I was trying to protect you from their cruelty. I leaned forward. Vivian, tell me about Charles. She froze. My husband? Yes. Tell me about losing everything. About having to rebuild from scandal and debt. About being whispered about at the country club. About watching your daughter grow up knowing her father's name was mud. Her face went pale. How did you... I do my homework, I said softly. Just like you do yours. For the first time, her mask slipped. I saw the woman underneath. Scared, desperate, exhausted from 15 years of pretending. You don't understand, she whispered. You built yourself up from nothing. That's admirable, but I had everything and lost it. Do you know what that's like? To fall from grace? To have people who once courted your favor turn their backs? No, I admitted. I've never had grace to fall from. I had to earn every inch. Then you don't know what I'm trying to save my daughter from. Her eyes were bright, but no tears fell. If she marries wrong, if she aligns with the wrong family, we lose what little we've clawed back. I'm not trying to hurt you, Gloria. I'm trying to survive. I felt something unexpected then. Not sympathy, but recognition. So you decided to survive at my expense, I said quietly, to erase me so you could preserve your daughter's standing. I was trying to find a middle ground. There is no middle ground between dignity and erasure, Vivian. Either I'm Nathan's mother, fully present, fully acknowledged, or I'm not. There's no compromise version where I exist quietly in the shadows so you can maintain your social standing. She stared at me across the table, two women from different worlds fighting over the same sun. What do you want? She asked finally. I slid an envelope across the table. A prenuptial agreement, drafted by independent counsel, protects Nathan's assets and Sloane's, creates boundaries for both families, makes sure everyone knows exactly where they stand. She opened it, scanned the pages. Her lips tightened. This is insulting. This is clarity, I corrected. If you love your daughter, you'll want her protected. If Nathan loves Sloane, he'll want the same. The only reason to refuse is if someone plans to take advantage. Vivian closed the folder carefully. If I agree to this, will you release the vendors? If Nathan and Sloane agree to this, I corrected. This isn't about you and me anymore, Vivian. It's about whether our children can build something honest. She stood, leaving the folder on the table. You know what your problem is, Gloria? You think integrity is free. It's not. It costs. And sometimes the price is happiness. And you know what yours is? I said quietly. You think survival justifies anything. It doesn't. She walked out without another word. I sat alone at that table, the prenup between me and an empty chair, and wondered if I'd just made things better or infinitely worse. The waiter brought the check. I paid for both untouched meals. Some conversations cost more than money. I didn't hear from Vivian after that dinner. No angry calls, no threats, just silence. The kind that means someone's planning their next move. The 48-hour deadline came and went like a held breath finally released. The 48-hour deadline came and went like a held breath finally released. I sat at my desk on that Thursday morning watching emails populate my inbox. Naya had sent the vendor release authorizations at 12:01 a.m., precise as always. But releasing them and salvaging the wedding were two different things. The florist called first. Mrs. Scott, I appreciate the payment for my losses, but those hydrangeas, they're already wilting. Even if you greenlight everything today, I can't guarantee the same quality by Saturday. I understand, I said. Do what you can, or substitute your professional judgment. She was quiet for a moment. You're really going to let this wedding happen? That was never my call to stop, I told her. I just needed time to think. The caterer was less forgiving. You can't halt a wedding 72 hours out and expect everyone to just pivot back. My staff made other commitments. I have another event Saturday night. I can do reduced service at best. I took notes, made calls, negotiated. By noon, I'd spent 3 hours doing damage control for a wedding I wasn't sure would even happen. Then my phone rang. Nathan. Mom, he said, and his voice cracked on that one syllable. Sloane postponed it. I set down my pen. What? She called the whole thing off. Well, not off. Postponed. She said she can't marry me until we figure out how to be honest with each other. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. How are you? I asked. I don't know. He laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. I'm sitting in my apartment, surrounded by wedding gifts I'll have to return, and I don't know if I'm relieved or devastated. Maybe both, I said softly. Vivian is furious. She's blaming you. She's calling people, telling them you sabotaged everything because you're... He stopped. Because I'm what, baby? Controlling, jealous of Sloane, unable to let me grow up. His voice dropped. Mom, she's destroying your reputation. She called the clinic, talked to your donors. 2 of them have already pulled their pledges. My chest tightened. The clinic was my legacy, the wound care startup I'd helped build, the place where nurses like me could advance without barriers. Let her, I said, though my voice wavered. I've rebuilt before. This isn't fair. Life rarely is. I cut him off gently. Nathan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you love Sloan? Silence stretched between us like wire pulled taut. Yes, he said finally, but I don't know if that's enough. Love is never enough, I told him. Love is the foundation. Everything else, trust, honesty, respect, that's what you build on top. Without those, love is just pretty words on rotten wood. After we hung up, I sat very still in my office. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, turning the salt marsh golden. In the distance, a heron picked its way through the shallows, patient and precise. My phone buzzed. Adelaide, Adelaide, you okay? Me, no. Adelaide, come to dinner. I made gumbo. Me, I'll be there in an hour. But first I allowed myself something I rarely did. I put my head down on my desk and cried. Not delicate tears, ugly, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for Nathan, caught between 2 women who both loved him badly. I cried for the wedding that wouldn't happen, for the family photos that would stay blank. I cried for myself, for being right in a way that cost everything. Then I washed my face, fixed my makeup, and drove to my sister's house. Because breaking down is human, staying broken is a choice. Adelaide's kitchen smelled like childhood, onions and celery, and that particular spice blend our grandmother used to make. My sister stood at the stove, stirring a pot big enough to feed 20 people. You look like hell, she said without turning around. I feel worse. Good. Sit down and tell me where you went wrong. I stopped halfway to the chair. Excuse me? Adelaide turned, wooden spoon in hand like a weapon. You heard me. Where did you go wrong in all this? I didn't. Vivian is the one who... I didn't ask about Vivian. Adelaide pointed the spoon at me. I asked about you. What did you do wrong, Gloria? I sank into the chair. I protected myself. By using money as a weapon, Adelaide said flatly. By invoking clauses and pulling funding and making your son choose between his dignity and his wedding. You think that's protection? That's control, baby sister. That's the same thing you accused Vivian of doing. The words hit like a slap. That's not... I was just... You were hurt, Adelaide said, softer now. You were hurt and scared, and you went to war. But Gloria, when you use the same weapons as your enemy, you become just another soldier in a fight. Nobody wins. I stared at my hands, at the age spots starting to show, at the wedding ring I still wore from my second marriage, though Raymond had been gone 5 years. I didn't know what else to do, I whispered. I know, honey. Adelaide ladled gumbo into 2 bowls, set one in front of me. But somewhere between protecting yourself and controlling the situation, you forgot to let Nathan make his own mistakes. He was letting them erase me, so you erased the wedding. Adelaide sat across from me. 2 wrongs don't make a right. They just make more wrong. We ate in silence for a while. The gumbo was perfect, just like grandmother's, some recipes you carry in your bones. What do I do now? I asked finally. You let go, Adelaide said. You apologize for weaponizing your money. You tell Nathan you love him whether he marries Sloan or not, and you trust that you raised him well enough to figure out his own path. And if he chooses her, if he chooses Vivian's world, then you love him anyway, Adelaide said. That's what mothers do. We love them even when they break our hearts. I didn't know Nathan was in therapy until 3 weeks later when he called and asked to meet. We sat on my porch at sunset, the time of day when the marsh turns gold and purple and the world feels like it's holding its breath. I've been seeing someone, Nathan said. A therapist, Dr. Washington. Good, I said and meant it. She's helping me understand some things." He was quiet for a moment, watching an egret stalk through the shallows. "Mom, do you remember when I was 8 and got in that fight at school? Deshaun Williams called you a name. You bloodied his nose. You didn't punish me," Nathan said slowly. "You asked me what I was really fighting about, and I told you I was tired of being the scholarship kid, tired of not fitting in with the rich kids. I remembered. I'd held him while he cried, then taught him that fighting with fists meant you'd already lost the real battle. You told me to stand up without tearing others down," Nathan continued. "But Mom, I don't think I ever learned how to do that. I learned how to survive by being what people needed. The good son, the successful black man who doesn't make waves, the perfect fiancé." His voice cracked on that last word. "I've spent my whole life trying not to disappoint anyone," he said. "And in the process, I disappointed everyone, including myself." I reached for his hand. He let me take it. "Dr. Washington helped me see something else, too," he said. "I was ashamed of you." The words hung in the humid air between us. "Not because of anything you did," he rushed on, "but because you didn't fit. You were too loud at the country club, too direct with Vivian's friends, too much yourself. And instead of being proud that you refused to shrink, I was embarrassed that you wouldn't." Tears ran down his face, catching the sunset light. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I let them erase you because I was ashamed of being your son. And that's unforgivable." "Nathan," I cupped his face like I used to when he was small. "Baby, shame is taught. You weren't born feeling that way. Someone taught you that your mama wasn't good enough, and you believed them because you wanted to belong. That doesn't make it right." "No," I agreed. "But it makes it human, and human things can be healed." We sat together as the sun dropped below the tree line, neither of us speaking, just breathing together. "I need to apologize, too," I said finally. "I used money as a weapon. I controlled the situation instead of trusting you to handle it. I became the thing I was fighting against. You were protecting yourself, in all the wrong ways," I finished. "Adelaide was right. I went to war when I should have just let go." "Where does that leave us?" Nathan asked. I looked at my son, 32 years old, successful, kind, still learning how to be brave. "It leaves us here," I said. Honest, imperfect, trying to be better. 6 weeks after what should have been Nathan's wedding, we all sat in Reverend Carter's office for what he called a mediation session. Nathan and Sloan on one side, me on the other. Vivian had been invited but declined. Sent her regrets through Sloan with the kind of polite venom only Southern women can master. "Before we begin," Reverend Carter said, his voice gentle but firm, "I want to establish ground rules. We're here to heal, not to win. Understood?" We all nodded. "Nathan," he said, "you asked for this meeting. Would you like to start?" My son took a deep breath. "I want to apologize. To everyone." He looked at me first. "Mom, I'm sorry I let Vivian diminish you. I'm sorry I chose comfort over courage. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to fight for your place in my life." Then he turned to Sloan. "And I'm sorry I lied to you. About signing the prenup behind your back. About how bad things were between our families. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really just avoiding conflict." Sloane's eyes were wet. "I'm sorry, too, to both of you. I knew my mother was being cruel. I knew she was trying to control everything. And I let her because it was easier than standing up to her." She looked at me directly for the first time. "Mrs. Scott, I'm sorry I didn't defend you. I'm sorry I benefited from your erasure. And I'm sorry it took a canceled wedding for me to find my spine." My turn. "I'm sorry I weaponized my resources," I said. "I'm sorry I went to war instead of seeking peace. And Nathan," my voice broke, "I'm sorry I didn't trust that I'd raised you strong enough to figure this out yourself." Reverend Carter let the silence sit for a moment. "Now," he said, "what do you want to build from here?" The wedding happened 6 months later. Not the grand affair Vivian had planned. No society columns, no 200 guests, No elaborate performance of belonging. 40 people on my porch at Sapelo Sound. Mason jars with wildflowers. Reverend Carter officiating. A string quartet that played Motown between the classical pieces. I sat in the front row, not because I demanded it, but because Sloane asked me to. Vivian came, sat in the back by choice, left immediately after the ceremony. I didn't take it personally. Some people need distance to feel safe. I understood that better than most. When Nathan and Sloane exchanged vows, they'd written their own. "I promise," Nathan said, voice steady, "to never let you shrink for my comfort, to choose honesty over peace, to build a marriage where both our mothers are honored, even when it's hard." Sloane's voice was soft but clear. "I promise to choose you over approval, to build boundaries with love instead of fear, and to remember that family isn't about erasing differences. It's about making space for them." I cried. Adelaide handed me tissues without comment. At the reception, Nathan found me standing at the porch railing, watching the sun set over the marsh. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For teaching me that standing up is worth the cost, even when your knees shake," I smiled. "Your knees still shaking?" "Every day," he admitted. "But I'm standing anyway." We watched the last of the light fade from the sky, turning the water dark and silver. "Mom," Nathan said, "do you think we'll ever get it completely right? The family thing?" I thought about Vivian, sitting in the back row, unable to fully let go. About Sloane, learning to set boundaries with the mother who'd controlled her whole life. About Nathan and me, still learning how to love each other without conditions. "No," I said honestly. "I don't think any family gets it completely right. We just keep choosing each other over and over, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." "That enough?" I looked at my son, married now, beginning his own family, still asking his mama for wisdom. "It has to be," I said, "because it's all we've got." Adelaide appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "The bride and groom are cutting the cake. You gonna stand here philosophizing or celebrate?" I took the glass, raised it toward the house where music and laughter spilled out into the evening. "Both," I said, "because that's what life is. Philosophy and celebration, struggle and joy, all mixed together like gumbo in my grandmother's pot." We walked back inside together, 3 generations of women who'd learned the hard way that love without boundaries is just another word for erasure. But love with boundaries? That's freedom. 1 year later, the call came on a Thursday. Nathan's voice, breathless with joy. "Mom, we're pregnant." I set down my coffee, felt my heart expand in my chest. "Oh, baby, congratulations. It's early. We're not telling everyone yet. But I wanted you to know." "How's Sloane feeling?" "Terrified, excited. She wants to talk to you about how to be a mother without repeating the patterns." I thought about Vivian, probably sitting in her Savannah apartment, wondering if she'd get a call. About the grandchild who'd carry both our legacies, both our mistakes, both our hopes. "Tell her to come by Sunday," I said. "I'll make lunch. We'll talk." After we hung up, I walked out to the porch, the same spot where Nathan and I had reconciled, where he'd married Sloane, where so much had been broken and rebuilt. I thought about the line I'd written in my notebook a year ago. The wedding never happened. I'd been wrong. The wedding happened, just not the way anyone planned. And maybe that was the real lesson. Not everything has to go according to plan to turn out right. Sometimes the broken things become the most beautiful. I opened my notebook to a fresh page and wrote, "The family we're building isn't perfect, but it's honest. And honesty, I'm learning, is worth more than appearances, worth more than peace, worth more than being right, worth everything." The marsh wind picked up, carrying the salt smell of home. Somewhere in the distance, a heron called. I sat on my porch in the house I'd built twice and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not victory, not vindication, just peace, the real kind.